what if in this season, your church can exit this COVID period, this COVID era, in a better place, healthier, with more volunteers, okay, more financially healthy than when it entered? Hi, this is Pastor Ariel for the Church Growth Channel. We're here to help churches that are less than 1,000 turn first-time guests into fully engaged members utilizing discipleship and connection strategies. And in this channel, listen, we're going to be sharing the latest when it comes to church growth strategies. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. So recently I did a training called Ready for Anything, where I kind of got a couple of small churches together and we talked a little bit about what would it look like to make ourselves churches that are healthy and ready for any crisis that comes before you. And one of the things that I said is that every crisis is an opportunity for growth. And so imagine entering into a crisis period where things seem hectic and out of control and falling apart, and exiting better than the way you entered, exiting healthier, exiting with more volunteers, exiting with a better strategy and more clarity than when you exited. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. And in order to help us to frame that conversation, what I've done is I've put together 5 mistakes that your church might be doing right now, 5 mistakes that are stunting your church's growth in this COVID era. Ready? Here's mistake number 1. Trying the same tactics in a different era. Okay, so one of my favorite new quotes is by Harry Newhoff, and he says, those churches will re-embrace a model of ministry designed to reach a world that no longer exists today. Right? So those churches that are going to struggle, those churches that might be failing, who are not growing at the capacity that they should be, it could potentially be because they're embracing a model of ministry that no longer is impactful in this season. And so when I think of this, what I think of is the fact that there's a difference between strategy and tactics. So strategy, what is your strategy for reaching people? What is your strategy for growing the church? What is the strategy you have for discipling people? Right? So those strategies may stay the same. Ultimately, for example, we want to reach more people. We want to evangelize. Ultimately, we want to connect more people and see them grow. But the tactics is what's going to change. And so what I want you to be able to do is take a look at your tactics, right? So how are you reaching people? And how do we now move that online? Okay, how are you discipling people? And how do we move that online? Mistake number 2 is that we're treating online as a temporary solution. Okay. Here's what I mean by this. I've had conversations with pastors, and they're saying one day, we're gonna go back to buildings, and you're absolutely right. We will go back to buildings, but things have changed, right? You've gotten a glimpse of the growth that can happen when you're using social media, when you're online. You've gotten a glimpse of what happens when people are afraid to leave their homes. And so in order to overcome that, we've got to understand that things are not going back the same. And one of the biggest strategies and opportunities you have is what's called an online strategy. So I want to give you 3 roles that you should be thinking about. Doesn't mean you've got to pay them. It could be volunteer roles, but these are 3 roles you need in order to be able to take your online strategy to another level. And here's the first. You need an online pastor. Okay, and here's the primary role. You need someone who's going to help engage people, who's going to connect with them, who's going to minister to them online. Hey, number 2, you need someone who's going to be like a communications director. All that really means is they're going to help you take your message and put it in different places so that everyone can find out, okay, this is when these events are happening. This is when we're doing this outreach. This is how the church actually ministers to people. These are the opportunities for me to get connected. Someone has to manage that communication. And it's not just online, they're also doing it via email. And eventually, when you're back in the building, right, the same announcements that are happening in the building have to somehow make their way online. And so all of that has to be managed by someone who's going to help you with your communication. And here's the third, you gotta have someone online who's going to be like a children's pastor. Okay. Again, you don't have to pay it. It could be a volunteer position, but they've got to be able to minister to people in a classroom and online. Because here's the thing, one of the most important ways, and one of the biggest ways you can reach people is by serving their family. And so if the kids are ministered to, and if the kids are growing, and the kids are maturing spiritually, guess what the parents are going to do? They're going to follow. So get yourself someone who can help you reach children. By the way, if we're adding value to you, do me a favor, hit the like button below. Thank you. All right, mistake number 3. Mistake number 3 is that we're creating spectators versus ministers. Here's what I mean by that. One of the things that I'm noticing is that the majority of the actual ministry that's happening among churches right now is actually a recording of a sermon and then being uploaded. So there's a small group of people who are doing the majority of the ministry. So you've got your video editors, and you've got maybe a tech guy who's helping you with the audio, and you've got 1 or 2 people who are helping you with the shooting. But at the end of the day, you may have a congregation of people that are not necessarily doing any ministry. In fact, they're being trained to watch the minister do the ministry. And it's a mistake for 2 reasons. One, part of the reason that you're doing this is because there isn't a creative way to actually do ministry in this season, right? You can't figure out, well, how do we reach more people, right? What do we do with the ushers? What do we do with children's workers? What do we do with people who used to have a function when we were in a building, but now because we're moved online, we don't necessarily have a function for them? And here's where my answer is, we've got to be able to find a way to pivot. Right? So take some of the things that you've been doing in the building and start asking the question, is there a similar way to accomplish the same thing online? For example, I've got children workers. So these children workers, can I get them to actually do children's ministry online? Or maybe I've got some ushers and some first impressions people. Can they help me moderate? Can they help me welcome people as they're jumping onto the chat? Right? Can we take a portion of their function and move it online? Mistake number 4 is that you don't have a connection process. And I'm seeing this happen over and over again as I'm watching people do their services online, right? They're not reaching out to first-time guests, right? They're not necessarily helping people take next steps. It's all about, hey, we just did a service. We're just thrilled that we got the service online. And the thing for me, the challenge that I want to lay out to you is that whether you're in a COVID period or not, the goal was never just to do services. The goal was to disciple people. And if that's the goal, then we've got to figure out, how do we help people take next steps? And here's mistake number 5, probably the biggest mistake in my opinion, is that we're waiting for normal to return. And so I was in a conversation with a pastor, and he was saying to me, yeah, when we get back into the building, and when we get back into the building, and I think when we get back to the building, and I stopped and I said, hey, you're waiting to go back to normal, and you're missing out on the opportunity right in front of you. And so here's the challenge I want to lay out to you as pastors. Hey, don't wait for normal. This is your normal. This is your current season of opportunity. Do not wait for the building to open up. Do not wait for some concept of what things used to be and maybe one day in the future they will be to arrive. Do ministry now. In this season, figure out, ask questions, pull your team together. If it's just you and your spouse, bring your spouse around you, but ask the question, how can we serve people now? Hey, so if you've been shaking your head and just kind of connecting with any one of those 5 mistakes, if you're thinking to yourself, man, that's me, then here's what I want to do. I want to help you. We're offering a free assimilation audit. What that simply is a 60-minute call where we'll jump on and we'll chat with you. And our goal is to identify 3 things that you can do starting tomorrow to be able to actually make the adjustments to start seeing growth in your church. So if you're interested and you'd love to have a 60-minute call with me, then you can go into the description area and just see the link. There'll be a link. You'll be able to enter your information and set up a time where we can talk. And I'm looking forward to it. Hey, one last thing. So the question of the day. What is the question of the day for today? Which one of these mistakes do you resonate with? And if you're bold enough, let me know why. I'd love to be able to connect with you and dialogue with you. But let me know which one of the mistakes do you identify resonates with you. All right, that's it for now. Thank you so much for joining us.